Part 2 on how I got food poisoning at the restaurant I worked at.
Storytime about how I woke up to my best friend having a seizure.
Storytime about my toxic sister.
Storytime about how my boyfriend was cheating on me with my stepsister.
Part 2 on how I got food poisoning at the restaurant I worked at. So I just could not fall asleep. And I was tossing and turning all night. Around 6 a.m., I get up. That's the time I usually get up to get ready for work. And I kid you not, as I was in the toilet with diarrhea, my head was in a bucket throwing up. Yes, I was doing both at the same time. So I had to go to the hospital because this has never happened to me. I can't even throw up without making myself throw up. Not that I do that, but you get the point. So I got to emergency. They do some tests and they told me I had food poisoning. So, they took care of me. I called the manager, let him know that I got food poisoning because his cook did not follow instructions. And he said he was going to talk to him. And I quit a month after that. Should I do a story time? Story time about my toxic sister. My sister and I don't have the same dad. And we didn't grow up together either. I was raised by my grandmother, and she was raised by my birth mother. And I call her my birth mother because she's never been there for me, and we really don't get along. So at first my sister and I got along, but then she changed. And I just want to say before anything, my sister's white, and I'm obviously not. And she would always bring that up. She would always tell me how she was better than me because she was white and she had better hair than me. And I just thought that she would say that because we were kids, But then every time I told her I liked a guy, she would tell me she was talking to that same guy. But if I wanted him, she would stop talking to him. Like for part 2. Part 2 about my toxic sister. So basically, she would always say that the guy was interested in her. And she would always compete with me. Like if I bought a cute shirt, she would have to buy that same shirt and would tell me it looked better on her. Or if I got some new sneakers, she would ask me to wear them before I even did. So I suffered a lot when I was a teen just because of her. So a couple years ago, I started to gain confidence. So I decided to big chop my hair because I wanted to grow my natural curls. 2 months after that, she did the same thing and cut her hair the same way I did. And I always loved makeup, and she would make fun of me because of it. She would always say that she didn't need any makeup, and she was naturally pretty. But when I started to get good at makeup, like for part 3. Part 3. So when I started getting good at makeup, all of a sudden she also wanted to do makeup. And everyone can love makeup, but when you constantly make fun of someone because they love makeup, and then you start loving makeup, don't tell me it doesn't piss you off. But anyways, what really got me mad was that this summer, she came to visit, and I let her stay at my house, and I got this new neon bathing suit and took some pictures with it. And she wanted to wear that same bathing suit and take the same pictures I took. So I had to ask why she always wanted to do everything like me. And she denied it and got really defensive. Long story short, after I confronted her, I just told her that we shouldn't talk anymore. And my life has never been better. Storytime about my controlling and abusive ex. So I dated this guy for 3 years. He was my very first boyfriend. And I was in a really bad time when I met him. So I really thought that he loved me. And I thought that if I left him, I would be alone. So like any other relationship, the first year was wonderful. But then after a year and a half, he started getting very controlling, and he started off by telling me to give him the passwords to all my social media accounts, or that the relationship was over. I argued with him about it, but at the end of the day, I gave him all my passwords. And he would go through all my conversations, even the ones years before I met him. So before I met him, I had a guy best friend, but he hated him for no reason other than he was a guy. Like and follow for part 2. Part 2. So a little backstory. When I say I was in a really bad time, it means that I was still living at home and my whole family is toxic. But that's another story. And if you guys want me to tell you that one, comment below. So he hated my best friend, and he made me stop talking to him and block him from everywhere, and again threatened to leave me. And I did. I blocked him from everywhere and told him that we could not talk anymore. One day we had a big fight. He broke up with me, and I can't really explain how I felt, but I can just say that I felt lost, and I didn't know what I was gonna do with my life. Honestly, I thought my life ended because he broke up with me, and I ended up begging him to get back with me. Like and follow for part 3. Part 3. So he made my life miserable because I begged him to get back with me. He said under one condition, if I send him nudes, and I said no. He went on saying that if I actually loved him, I would send him my nudes, that it would be something special for him. At that moment, I opened my eyes and I said, this is not love. So I told him I did not want to get back with him. The next day, he showed up at my house, told me that he wanted to talk with me to get in his car, and I did. He said that I was going to have to send him the nudes, or that he would have to hit me. I said you would never do that, and he did. He slapped me. I got out of his car, said I never wanted to see him again, and every day after that, he would call me crying and begging me to forgive him. I was strong enough to say no, and never saw him again.
Storytime about how I woke up to my best friend having a seizure. A little background information. So my close friend invited me over to his house to spend the night, and we're gonna call him Jay. Well, Jay and I got to his house, and his parents were really strict, so he had to sneak me in. So he told me to wait by the garage, and as soon as he opens the front door to his house, I hear his parents screaming. So he's inside fighting with his parents, I'm outside freezing my ass off. So an hour later, he comes out to get me, walks me through the garage, and I have to hide in this crawl space. So while I'm hiding in this crawl space, him and his parents are still arguing. And his parents walk past where I was like 5 times. So his mom gets in the car and leaves. She said she was going to kill herself. His dad comes into the garage, starts crying. I literally witnessed him have a mental breakdown. Then his mom came back, said that she hated everybody. So then Jay purposely bangs his head off of the kitchen table 2 times. So when he came into the garage to get me, he had an ice pack on his head. Then we snuck up to his room like for part 2. Part 2. So like I said, he rushes me up to his room because his dad was in the basement and his mom left again, threatening to kill herself again. And while we're upstairs, he starts taking dabs. And we're up for a little bit and then we go to sleep. So at like 8 in the morning, we both wake up. He's on his phone, I'm on my phone. We're not facing each other. And then all of a sudden, I feel the bed start to shake like a lot. So I turn over and this kid is having a full-blown fucking seizure. Like he's foaming at the mouth. His eyes are literally rolling in the back of his head. So I get up and roll him over onto his side because I didn't want him to start choking. And I'm fucking freaking out and don't know what to do because I wasn't even supposed to be there in the first place. And he's like making all these types of noises. So I go and I run down the hallway. I try to find his parents' room. And I open the door and have to wake them up dead out of their sleep. And I was like, your son's having a seizure. So his mom runs over to the room. And his dad's like, well, who the f*** are you? And why the f*** are you in my house? And I was like, your son told me that I could stay the night last night. Oh, like for part 3. Part 3. So like I said, his dad's like interrogating me right now. So they call an ambulance. His son leaves in the ambulance. They didn't go with him. And his dad's like, you're never allowed in this fucking house again. And then he asked me, did he take anything last night? And I'm like, he did dabs, but like, I didn't do anything because I don't do that stuff. So he goes over to where all of his dab stuff is and starts throwing the glass pieces in the garbage, making sure that he fucking breaks them all. And his mom comes over to me to comfort me because I'm literally like crying because this kid almost died right next to me. And she's like, it's okay, sweetie, like this happens to him a lot. But I felt so uncomfortable because he was like making it seem like it was my fault. So I hurry up and call my mom, and my mom doesn't get there till like 30 minutes because their house is a little bit further away. And for all of you wondering what happened to him, I don't know because this happened this morning. Storytime about how my boyfriend was cheating on me with my stepsister. So a little background information, my mom remarried whenever I was in 8th grade, and my stepdad had 2 daughters. One which was my age and we got along really well. Well, before my sisters and I went back to school, my mom wanted to go on a camping trip with everyone. And my boyfriend was coming because he was really close with my family. So while my stepsister and I are packing up, she starts acting really weird. And we're gonna call my boyfriend Kevin. She was like, oh, is Kevin still coming with us? And I was like, yeah. And then she goes, oh, are you and Kevin still together? And I'm like, we were never broken up. Like, the fuck? Like I said, she was just being super weird. But anyways, we all get in the car, we drive up there, and her and Kevin start being super weird around each other. Like, they were being too touchy. Anytime that I wanted to go do something with Kevin, she would say, oh, Kevin, you can come do this instead. Well, that night, Kevin and I are sleeping in our tent. At least I thought he was. And I wake up to some loud noises in the other tent, like for part 2.